your guys' respect for Brian as he shares tonight. So let's give it up for Brian Schmaderer.
All right, first off, I'm going to ask some questions. And when you answer questions, if the questions are correct, you'll get a reward. And so you have the choice between, do you want the reward to be lollipops or the pens? By a show of hands, who wants the pens?
Hands waiting.
They look like purple.
And I think literally everyone raised their hand except for you. Who wants the lollipops? 1, 2, you already voted for something.
How about both?
I vote for both.
All right, the pens are what we're giving out.
It depends.
Depends.
It depends
On
on.
the pen.
Oh my
God.
Stop.
Shut up.
All right, guys. So, does anyone have any idea what my message is on tonight? This one doesn't count for any rewards because it's already up there for you. So, let's see, Joanna.
Does tolerance equal love?
Does tolerance equal love? That is correct. Is tolerating someone the same as loving someone?
No.
Yes,
Nope.
No, yes. Why do you say yes, Blaine?
because you love them enough to wait. Not tolerating them means like you ignore them, right?
Oh, well, Blaine, you bring up, your question brings up a good point. And
What are we
what is tolerance is a really good question to ask when it comes to this. So, yeah, James,
Dealing with someone nicely and not being rude to them.
that's a good one. I like that answer. Savannah.
Putting up with someone even if you are highly annoyed with them, you still stay patient.
That's another good answer. David,
You on a daily basis.
what is tolerance is me on a daily basis?
Yeah, you're nice
Yeah.
to everybody even though you really don't want to. I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah, you're talking about
Okay.
You just don't give them the pen.
Good answer. Blaine?
Like somebody being like annoying or like somebody you don't really like, but you choose to put up with them.
All right, Blaine. Way to answer your own question.
Do I get a pen?
Okay. So, a very good thing to do when you're looking up the meaning of a word is to Google it. So dictionary.com says, what is tolerance? To allow the existence, occurrence, or practice of something, like Savannah said, that one does not necessarily like or agree with without interference. Can everyone agree with that, or does anyone disagree with that definition at some point or another? So it's to allow the existence, the occurrence, or the practice of something that one does not necessarily like or agree with without interference. I think this is a good definition that obviously we all agree upon because none of you disagreed with it. So this is where, though, we need to get technical because my message, like I said, is a two-part. It's does tolerance equal love? And then what does it mean then after we answer that question to communicate the truth to someone in love? So we'll kind of see how it fits together. It might seem a little like it doesn't fit together at first, but to tolerate somebody, like this definition says, you allow the existence of, the occurrence of, or the practice of something that you may not necessarily like or agree with without interference. I want to say that this is where we need to get technical, though, because when you use language, your words have meaning. And when you say something, your intent and the meaning of the words that you use convey a specific idea. So you may say something and mean something else, but what you say still has meaning because of your choice of words. Does that make sense? You can say tolerance, and even though you might mean something else, this definition here is the generally agreed upon the meaning of the word tolerance. So even though you might have a different meaning, that doesn't change the meaning of that word itself. You didn't come up with the word, so therefore you can't decide on what that word means. Does that make sense? The word tolerance means a specific thing, and your idea of what it means doesn't change what it actually means. Often what is meant by saying we should tolerate an idea or action is that we should not say that that idea or action is wrong or express disagreement with it. Does that make sense? A lot of times this word tolerance gets used so as to express the idea that you should not disagree with or challenge somebody's beliefs. So if you're to say to a Hindu, well, I believe that your religion is wrong, and they reply to you, well, you should be a little more tolerant, you're a little narrow-minded, and they use that word tolerance on you, they might be conveying a different idea than what that word tolerance actually means. Because the word tolerance, as we can see here, is to allow the existence, the occurrence, or the practice of something. And then it says at the bottom, if you'll notice that, without interference. And me personally, that's where, and like I just made the argument that you can't change the meaning of something, but that's where I would disagree with this meaning of tolerance. Because if somebody's wrong, you have every right to challenge their belief. Tolerating it is to allow the existence of it, but why does that have to stop you from saying it's wrong or having a different idea of it, right? If you can really tolerate somebody's belief and yet challenge their beliefs and maybe say that it's wrong, the other person has every right to do the exact same thing to you, to challenge your beliefs and to think that you are wrong and to give reasons for why they think you're wrong, and then to still yet tolerate your beliefs. Today, to tolerate means that everyone has their idea of what is true or their own beliefs, and we have no right to say that they are wrong or challenge those beliefs. So, today people assume tolerance means accepting all views as true. And because genuine Christians don't do this, they're charged, often, I would add, they're charged with being intolerant because they don't accept everyone's views as equally true. And I like this quote, and it's a quote by a guy named Paul Coben. I put the little bibliography there for you guys if you ever wanted to cite that. In the Apologetic Study Bible. And I like this quote because, does anyone disagree with that statement? I like the quote because I agree with that statement, that people today assume tolerance means accepting all views as true. I think that we see that a lot today. That a lot of times when people say, hey, you should be a little more tolerant of other people's views, what they're really conveying to you, their idea behind saying that to you is, hey, you should allow people to believe that's true because everyone has different truths. Just because something isn't true for you doesn't mean that it can't be true for them. And I hope that sounds a little bit familiar to you guys, because that's a big part of the whole entire idea of Truth Quest, and what Ryan's already been teaching on throughout this week. And that's this little, but actually it's a decent sized word, and it's called relativism. And it's the idea that nobody has the one single truth, and yet everybody has a different version of truth, and heck, it's all true. You can't say that the Hindu's wrong, you can't say that the Muslim is wrong, you can't say that the homosexual is wrong in their practice of homosexuality, because everyone has a different life. Everyone has a different upbringing, a different culture. Hindus are from a completely different country and a completely different side of the world. Who are you to say that the Hindu doesn't have the truth, that their truth is wrong just because you disagree with their truth? Is that making sense? This idea of tolerance conveys that idea, that line of thought, that you should tolerate somebody else's truth as true because of all these differences, because they're culturally different, because they're brought up in a different country, because their skin color is different than yours, and they come from a completely different race than you, and they have different cultural beliefs and traditions. And this gets back to relativism that's already been talked about, but it's a very important point. Truth being relative is an argument that's very easy for people to use when that argument benefits them, when they're the one that you're challenging. And so instead of giving actual good reasons for why their idea that's different from yours is right, they just say, hey, well, it's all true. Who are you to say it's not true? Do you see it? It's a subtle difference, but yet, when you think about it, it's a very big difference. The difference of someone giving an actual reason and evidence, like Mr. Brian just gave today for the resurrection of Jesus Christ. There's archaeological evidence. There's historical evidence from people that aren't even Christians that say, yeah, this happened. This was a historical event. All right, those are reasons and evidences for us to say that, yes, we believe in Jesus, and Jesus is who everyone should believe in, because there's actual evidence for it. Compared with, well, you shouldn't say that I'm wrong about Jesus rising from the dead, because, well, everyone has a different truth. I'm from America. I'm from a Western philosophy, this westernized culture that has generally and overwhelmingly, but is probably now declining, accepted Christianity. There's that idea of being American and therefore you're Christian. And everyone has a different truth. That's my Western American truth. And who are you to say that I'm wrong in believing Jesus rose from the dead? You see the two differences there? Using relativism and using actual evidence and reason for why we believe what we believe to be true. Okay? Ironically, the call to tolerance by relativists presuppose the existence of at least one non-relative, universal, and objective norm. And that's tolerance. They say, everyone has different... No, Siri, I'm not talking to you. Everyone has a different idea of what truth is, and therefore you can't say that somebody else is wrong. You must tolerate everybody. The easy reply to that is, why must I tolerate everybody? Who are you to say I must tolerate everybody? Right? You're telling me that I can't say anyone's wrong, yet you're saying I'm wrong in being intolerant. Does that make sense? I ask you guys if it makes sense a lot, because it makes a lot of sense in my head, and then sometimes when I try to talk it doesn't always. But, so yeah, ironically, the call to tolerance by relativists presupposes the existence of at least one non-relative, universal, and objective norm, and that's tolerance. They say, hey, you can't say anybody's wrong, and then you go, then why are you telling me I'm wrong? This is it's a quote, but it's in the form of a question. So I'll say, if you're intolerant of intolerant people, what does that make you? It makes you intolerant, right? Yeah, that was a guy named Tim Keller had that, and I thought that was pretty great. If you're intolerant of intolerant people, that makes you intolerant. You're shooting yourself in the foot. There's no difference between you and the person you're saying is intolerant. So, tolerance then, I think what it is and what it isn't. And to say what it is that you can be respectful of people's views. You can find points of agreement, but overall you don't have to agree with that person's line of thought. What tolerance is not is not a argument for you having to agree with everybody's line of thought on all points. That's what tolerance is not. So next, what I want to go to next then, after that kind of tolerance bit, is then I want to ask the question, well then why Christianity? Why is Christianity what it is that we here at the Truth Quest are presenting to you guys as true? We obviously, I think Brian probably gave a very good argument for why Jesus historically and actually rose from the dead. Ryan's been teaching on why God exists from certain philosophical arguments and ideas that people much smarter than all of us have come up with, that logically God probably, most likely, God does exist philosophically. So why Christianity? Everyone has a worldview that they think is right. And if your worldview is that all people should be tolerant, anyone that thinks you shouldn't be tolerant is wrong, according to that person. So what I want to communicate to you guys then now is that everyone has a worldview. What's your worldview? A worldview is, just say it backwards, it's the way you view the world. You view the world through a certain lens. If you are Mexican, you view the world probably a lot differently than me. I've grown up as white as a white person can be, right? I eat lots of cookies, and I go to Nebraska and eat corn with my family, and steak and potatoes, and I probably watch some different TV shows than other Mexican people or Asian people or black people. We all have different worldviews. And one of the unifying worldviews, though, that I think that we could all come into unity with is a Christian worldview. And that's pretty simple. It's just viewing the world through a Christian lens. And that's through how the Bible interprets the world. And I would say that Christianity's worldview is best when it comes to human rights. Just to name a few, Christianity's worldview is the best worldview when it comes to human rights, to preferring others above oneself, and to fostering racial reconciliation, which is just a way of saying that, in America, we had slaves a long time ago, and then for a while we had a law called Jim Crow law, and that a lot of black people have been, very oppressed in our country throughout the years. And Christianity is the best worldview to mend and reconcile all these kind of bad things that happen, not only in our country, but I would go so far as to say in other countries, in fact the entire world. Christianity, a Christian worldview is the best worldview to make the world a much better place. And I'll give arguments for why I believe that to be true. First, going back to the original question is, how do you then communicate the truth and love? I think it's smart to then ask the question, well, what is love? So I haven't given away pens in a while. Does anyone have any ideas on what love is? Someone give me a definition of love. Blaine.
Having an affection for something or someone.
An affection, yeah. Yeah, an affection for someone or something. Yeah, Savannah.
A strong feeling that you have towards something because
Really?
James.
A strong affiliation with someone or something?
A strong affiliation.
I think that's a real word.
It is a real word.
Pretty sure.
I don't think it has anything to do with love, but I'll give you a pen anyways. Sure, Lucas. The question is, what is the definition of love?
Oh, it's not what is love.
What is love? Yeah. Baby, don't hurt me. Okay. Okay, that's a good song. All right, anyone? Anyone else? Yes.
To never give something up and to never let it down.
To never give something up and never let it down.
It is kind of
Strong affection, a care for something.
Strong affection and care for something. Yeah, sure. Good catch. I think the Bible, getting back to the Bible, because I'm coming from a Christian worldview, the Bible says, and I think really defines love very well, in 1 John chapter 3, verses 16 through 18. It says, this is how we know what love is. So I love the Bible because it really makes a lot of things just clear for you sometimes. Sometimes when you're confused about something and then you look something up in the Bible, it's like, this is what it is. And that's just, it makes it simple for someone like me. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech. And I'll repeat that one more time. This is the word of God. This is 1 John chapter 3, verse 16 through 18. Verse 18, dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. So what does that mean? That means that to say I love you is an aspect of love. You're saying the word. But what does that even mean if you are never there for that person, never show any kind of physical affection, never give them a hug, never go to their anything that they think is important, you never show up for them? What does that even mean then, to say I love you and yet have no actions to back that up? So I'm pretty proud of myself. I came up with the definition. And I said love is a deep feeling of affection. So a lot of you guys were spot on with that first part. Is a deep feeling of affection that is always, and then if you'll notice I put a certain word in bold and I said always presupposed or followed by an action. So to just say I love you really it really doesn't mean a whole lot unless it's presupposed or followed by an action. You do something for that person. You show up for that person when that person needs you. You sacrifice something, maybe your time, maybe some of your energy, maybe some of your money, whatever it is, out of love for that person. If you don't do any of that stuff and you just say, I love you, what does that even mean then? You're not showing that you love them. There's nothing to back up your words. Your words become empty. To just say I love you and yet never do anything for that person or show them through an action. So love is a deep feeling of affection that is always, always presupposed by or followed by an action. So, as I get to how do we communicate the truth then in love, love is backed up by action. You have words and then you have action. We've talked about tolerance, what it is and what it isn't. What it is that you are respectful. People can have different views to you. You can tolerate that. But at the same time, what it isn't is that you don't have to shut up just because someone disagrees with you. You don't have to not voice your disagreement and your reasons for disagreeing just because they're different, just because they disagree with you. So as I get back to how do we communicate the truth in love, I wanted to ask the question, why should we communicate the truth in love? Sure, Brian.
Because if you truly love someone, you have to express the truth. You can't be like, I love you, even though you don't. You gotta say the truth. You really love them, so you say, I love you.
So you should communicate the truth in love because you love them?
Well, that and because you can't lie to them and be like, you can't be like, oh, I bought you this watch, but it's counterfeit.
Okay, yeah. You shouldn't lie to them. Lying isn't very loving. Yeah, Brandon.
I think the guest speaker last night summed it up. You tell somebody the truth without love, it's cruel. If you love somebody without truth, you're a hypocrite.
Yeah.
You can't love somebody and not tell them the truth.
All right. Do you want a sucker or a pen?
Sucker.
Joanna?
Because you want to save them from something bad happening to them. If they're going the wrong direction, you want to tell them the truth, but not
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Which one do you want?
red. Oh no, the pen.
A pen?
Careful.
Thank you.
Yep. The girl behind Tia. Oh, Savannah, sorry.
Right there.
Oh yeah.
Real chat.
Savannah.
Oh, right. But love is like a super powerful word. So like if you're not communicating the truth when you say I love you, it's like you're making a really big lie. Love has it has power. It's a really powerful word. It's like hate. If you say I hate you, it's a powerful word. If you tell someone you love them but you don't really mean it, it's not good.
Alright, so that's kind of similar to what Blaine was talking about. You don't want to lie to them.
Yeah.
Alright, lying isn't loving. So why you should communicate the truth in love is so as to not lie to them.
I'll take that. Oh, it's always something to fly towards me.
David, yeah.
When
David,
does the
last
man
one,
hit
David.
Jareth and David
Last
Okay,
one.
so the reason why you should communicate the truth in love is if because you communicate the truth in hate, then you're going to make that person hate you forever, and then you can never tell the truth in love, and they will never forgive you. Boom.
That makes sense.
Can I have a pen?
He has a very valid point.
How many pens do you have?
3.
Alright.
Hey!
Okay, here we go. Why should you
I know, right? I
communicate
got
the
one too.
truth
Blaine has
in love? Oh, that's still pretty easy to read, I think. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11 through 15. Paul's speaking to the church in Ephesus. He's talking about Jesus, and that's where we start. And he himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, and some pastors and teachers for the equipping of the saints for the work of the ministry, for the edifying of the body of Christ, till we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to be a perfect man, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, that we should no longer be children, tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine, by the trickery of men and the cunning craftiness of deceitful plotting, but, speaking the truth in love, may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ. So we speak the truth in love, for one, so that the saints can be equipped, so that they can be built up. To be edified or equipped conveys the idea of being built up. So you want to build others up and not tear them down. That's kind of a common way of thought. Your words can either be encouraging to someone or they can tear someone down. Your words, like Savannah was saying, your words have meaning and they have power. And you can use them negatively or positively. So you want to communicate the truth in love so as to have a building up, a positive impact. And then second part of that is so we don't get caught up in different teachings. You communicate the truth in love because there's a lot of teachings in the world that we really shouldn't be tolerant of. And I mean, right off the bat, you can think of some very, very easy ones that doctrines is just another word for teachings, doctrines that people thought that really shouldn't be tolerated. Can anyone, I won't ask, but I think right off the bat, the easiest one to think of is Hitler. Hitler's doctrines and his rise to power of there being an Aryan race, a race that is superior to the other ones, and that other races should be murdered and done away with so as to build up this Aryan race, and all of a sudden you have death camps for Jewish people and black people and gypsies and all these different kinds of people that are being mass murdered because of his teaching, right? And you think, well, that's crazy, I'd never believe it. Well, he got a whole entire country to believe in his doctrines, his teachings, right? So we communicate the truth in love so that, like I think you were saying, David, so that it can be, you want people to to be able to receive you, to listen to you. You communicate the truth in love so that they actually listen to what you got to say because you're doing it in love, and then you keep them from believing dangerous beliefs and dangerous ideas and doctrines and teachings. That's a reason why you communicate the truth in love, because there are lines of thought that people can have. Example, Hitler and his doctrine of an Aryan race and the racism that came from that, and a whole entire country believed that. Ryan talked about the Nuremberg trials and how the leaders of the Nazi party said, well, we didn't break any of our own country's laws, right? In their eyes, it's like, we didn't break any laws. Okay, so you communicate the truth in love to keep people from believing dangerous teachings that are not good, that are evil. Next, let's see, what are we doing next? Okay, so, and then secondly, you speak the truth in love so as to grow up in all things in Him who is the head, Christ. Now, here's another intolerant view, is you want to communicate the truth in love so that people accept Jesus. if you're doing it in a way that's unloving, people are like, well, why would I believe in you? That's a very unloving way that you're trying to communicate Jesus to me. So we want to communicate the truth in love so that people grow up in all things. They believe in Jesus. And we believe that everyone should believe in Jesus. And as I'm kind of giving the worldview, the Christian worldview that says Jesus is God and that everyone should believe in Jesus because it's not only for your personal salvation and that He takes away the sins of the world, but that really to believe in Jesus is to give yourself the best worldview for, like what I said, for human rights, for preferencing other people, the poor and the needy that need people, and for also, things like racial reconciliation or protecting and stopping people from bullying homosexuals or people from different races. So these two reasons, and we'll keep going. So how should we communicate the truth in love then? I said, why should we communicate the truth in love? And those are reasons for why. And now what kind of specific examples or ways can we communicate the truth in love? And I got this verse from Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 through 8. It says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit. This is what the Bible teaches. Let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interests, but also for the interests of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God. He wasn't taking away, but made himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. So there's a specific word that sums up kind of what those Bible verses are saying. And that word conveys the idea of how we should communicate the truth in love. And that word is, we should communicate the truth with empathy. And empathy is the idea to put yourself in someone else's shoes. A lot of times when you hear someone, maybe you haven't, because we live in a very, very tolerant and good community that doesn't have a lot of bigoted and racist people. But if you ever come across a racist person, one of the things that are probably going to be very common through any racist person or intolerant, bigoted person you come across is that the person that they are racist towards, the type of race that they are don't like, they probably don't have any friends of that race, right? I mean, that just makes sense. If you hate black people, you probably don't have any black friends, right? So to empathize is to kind of remove yourself from whatever kind of race or culture or nationality, ethnicity that you are, and put yourself and kind of imagine yourself in someone else's race or ethnicity or cultural traditions that they're in. And that's called empathy. You empathize with that person. You put yourself in their shoes. And it's a really good way to get an idea of, well, man, this person gets up from bed every day, and maybe they're a rural farmer in India, and they're Hindu. And they get up every day and have to, at 4 a.m., and have to go work the farm fields or something, and you think, okay, well, maybe I can not have ideas about this person that are, insensitive or intolerant, but I can actually be respectful toward this person. Okay, I want to belabor that. So again, how? So you want to empathize. You want to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Secondly, Ephesians, wow, that's kind of small. We probably could have made that a bigger font, but Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. What's this talking about here? It's talking about being humble for the sake of what? Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. That's talking about Christians, and not putting yourself on a pedestal above other people so that you put yourself first. You cut in line all the time, or cut corners so that you can get to somewhere first, or so that you can make more money than the next person. And it's very anti-self-centeredness, right? If your worldview is pro-humility and pro-empathy and anti-self-centeredness and I'm all about myself and myself as an individual is more important than anyone else, that's I would think that that's a pretty good worldview to have. And this is what the Bible teaches. It teaches us to empathize with people like Jesus. Instead of just staying in heaven and enjoying his position as God forever and ever, he chose to empathize with us, with people, with humans, and put himself in our shoes, basically, to make himself a human so as to be tempted like how we're tempted, so as to experience rejection, how we experience rejection, and suffering, how we experience suffering in our own lives. God chose to empathize with us out of love. And he humbled himself. And so we should humble ourselves. So we're to do so in humility. Who are we now? So how do we communicate the truth in love? We asked why. Why should we communicate the truth in love? And it's obviously out of love. We should communicate the truth in love for the purpose of love. Love is a big word in Christianity that Chris taught on last night. It's not like the core. Jesus is the core of Christianity, but love is a central idea to Christianity. So then we asked how should we communicate the truth in love? Empathy, humility. These are very great qualities to have. And now who is this directed to? Just people in the church? Just Christians? Everyone. Good. So I asked who, and I wrote down these. I have these two Bible passages. I'll read them. I didn't put them down on here. Mark chapter 12, verses 30 and 31. And a guy asked Jesus what the greatest commandment is. And Jesus says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment." And then Jesus says something pretty interesting. "And the second like it is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." He just it almost like he slips it in there really quick. "And you shall love your neighbor as yourself." Well, if you love yourself, which we all love ourselves, and to the sense of self-preservation, we want to make sure that we don't die every day, so we protect ourselves. We want to make sure that we, don't stink at something fierce, so we make sure we smell good. All these different things we do for ourselves. Jesus says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You prefer them. You want to go first in line because you're trying to get that last cookie. But what does the Bible teach? Prefer your neighbor. Just as you know that that's what you want, so it's safe to assume that that's what the next person wants. And Jesus says, prefer your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. Let that next person get that cookie. I don't practice that very often, just in all honesty. The second is Luke chapter 10, verses 29 and 37. This is going along the same idea that Paul says to love your neighbor as yourself. So I want to get to the specific question, well, who's your neighbor? Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. Who's your neighbor, right? So this rich guy comes up to Jesus, and this isn't the Bible, I'm just kind of giving context. This guy comes up to Jesus and says, well, who's my neighbor then? Which is a logical next question. But he, wanting to justify himself, said to Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Then Jesus answered and said, and Jesus gives what's called a parable now. A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves. Okay, so he ran into some thieves, some hoodlums, who stripped himself of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down to that road, and when he saw him, he passed on by the other side. So that priest wasn't a very cool guy. Likewise a Levite, which is a Jewish priest, when he arrived at the place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. So the Jewish priest, he pretty much failed in this story. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine, and he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever you spend when I come again, I will repay you. So which of these 3, he mentioned a priest, a Levite, and a Samaritan, which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? Jesus asked that question. And he said, he who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said, go and do likewise. So this is a parable, this is a story that Jesus gives to this guy about who his neighbor is. And so the Samaritan, obviously, is the guy that helps this guy, right? And this is a quote from a guy named Martin Manser in the Dictionary of Bible Themes. It says, for the Jews, the concept of a good Samaritan would have seemed very strange. That doesn't really explain what a Samaritan is. A Samaritan was kind of like a half-Jew, a Jew that got mixed in with pagan religions and kind of had this like quasi-Jewish, pagan type religion, and but still thought that they were like the people of God, actual Jewish people. So back in that time, there was some definite kind of racial hatred going on. The Jews hated the Samaritans, and the Samaritans hated the Jews, right? These 2 groups, 2 races of people very much did not like each other in this time period. For the Jews, the concept of a good Samaritan would have seemed very strange, but Jesus Christ shows that love and faith is not restricted to Israel's boundaries. Love and faith is not restricted to Israel's boundaries. Jesus would have, contrary to what anyone else during that time would want their own people to do, Jesus would have Christians tolerate people of other cultures and races for the purpose of love. We should tolerate other cultures, including, but not limited to, the type of food they eat, right? That's kind of basic. Their art, their music, their holidays, their family and community customs and traditions that they practice. Those are all things that Jesus tells us we need to tolerate. We should tolerate other races, African, European, Asian, Spanish. We shouldn't be intolerant of somebody's race. That's what Jesus is getting at. Jesus says, the Good Samaritan, this is the person that's your neighbor, and what should you do with your neighbor? Love your neighbor as yourself. So that's kind of and that's just where I want to end it right there, is that the worldview for Christianity is a worldview that encourages you, and I would say stronger, commands you to empathize with other people, to have humility, to prefer others over yourself. That's not intolerant. So when someone says that Christians are intolerant, that's very easy to just say, "Oh, why are you telling me I'm wrong?" That's pretty kind of intolerant then, all right? Tolerance is something, and it is not something. It is a very good and biblical respect for someone's race, culture, a respect for maybe even the majority of other people's beliefs. But what it is not is a universal command that you have to accept all views and ideas that people have as true and equally valid. The person that says that you have to say everyone's true would hopefully not agree with Hitler's doctrines or Mussolini or any leader in North Korea or Napoleon, I guess. So that's it. That's the worldview that I would encourage you guys to have, a biblical worldview that says everyone should believe in Jesus, and not for the sake of tolerance, but for reasons, for evidence. Big Brian gave some great evidence for why we should believe in Jesus, and everyone should believe in Jesus. Thanks, guys, for listening. That was about it.
Alright guys, got some announcements. Oh, Brian, wait a second. Alright, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Brian and his gift of teaching. Thank you for blessing us with him. And Lord, thank you for Brian Bland and his gift of teaching. Lord, we're so blessed to have these guys in the youth group. I pray you bless their families and their lives, Lord, for taking the time to study and be a part of Truth Quest. Lord, I do just pray for each one of these students that you would help them to speak the truth in love, Lord, and they would learn the difference between tolerating in the world's eyes and truly being long-suffering as you have been with us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we have some announcements. One is we do have High School Cafe tonight, so stick around. I really encourage you to do so. And the reason that I'd be blessed if you guys stuck around is we have a guest speaker coming tonight, and I know it would really, I think, be a blessing to have you guys here. If we only have like
My mama.
It's Brian's mom. Nice. So she's going to be sharing for part of it tonight, so if you guys would stick around, that's at 8:30. And then we'll be closing it down at 10:30. Tomorrow night, there is no High School Cafe, okay? So we get done. This session will be our last session tomorrow, so if that makes sense, okay? And the reason we're doing that is so that we can go to bed, because we're waking up super early for Knott's Berry Farm. Now, let me talk about Knott's Berry Farm for a minute in case you guys don't come tomorrow. For Knott's Berry Farm, make sure you try to, if you can, if it's not so gross and your parents have an opportunity to do laundry, wear, not this shirt, I'm not wearing the shirt, that blue shirt, the one that Tia's wearing, right? The shirt from this year, okay? So then that way we can all look like a bunch of Smurfs and all know where we are, okay? I guess Brian will be Papa Smurf because he gets the beard. Alright, so try to wear your shirts. Listen, 6 a.m. 6 a.m. is when you're going to be here. This year, I've made a choice. If you guys are not here and close to that window, we will just leave you. And hopefully you're not one of the drivers, because it makes it really hard to leave you here. So, we've had notoriously late people, and it just puts us way behind, and we miss out. So, let's not do that this year, okay? I'm speaking the truth in love here, okay? Because I don't want you to mess up. Another announcement is you guys are all doing really well on the games, okay? So be tallying your score. Also, don't forget to guess the amount of Starburst in that jar. Is it 200? No, it's not. Is it more? Maybe. Is it less? That's a chance too. All right? Is the center filled with a sock?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe that's not all Starburst.
I didn't think of that.
I don't know, but I didn't fill it, so Brian Schmaderer did. So, Brian, take a piece of paper, little piece of paper, write down your name and number, put it in the box, and you'll be winning the sweet candy unicorn that spits out rainbows of flavor. Now, what was the last thing I was going to announce? What, David?
How much Starburst is in the unicorn?
I can't tell you yet.
Are you sure?
Also, if you are not here tomorrow night for the 6:30 session, and you win the prize, I will give it to the next winner.
Nice.
Hey, it might be a time to send me and Joanna again, so.
If you are not here for tomorrow's session,
Listen.
you will not win the prize. We have a JBL Flip 3 that goes up to 90 dB. So,
Everybody
needs an extra space.
So,
It's almost as loud as audio.
with 2 bass, what do they call this? Bass radiators, Bluetooth speaker.
Hey, do we get the chargers too?
That's the winner. That's for the winner.
I need that, bro.
Do we get the
All right. Oh, I remember my other announcement. Tomorrow night, I'm gonna shorten my message. Thanks, guys, for not clapping. I'm gonna make it a lot shorter than I have planned. And what we're gonna do is we are gonna make sure we have a Q&A tomorrow. Okay. So invite your friends and bring your questions. What we'll do is we'll have an anonymous text in number. So you'll text that number and or go to the website and text in, and it'll pop up on the screen, and then you can upvote them or downvote them. And so we'll get the question that everyone has the most, and then we'll answer them tomorrow night. Okay? Tomorrow night, we're at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We're looking at the problem of what, if God exists, why is there still evil in the world? So we'll be looking at that, and then tonight we're looking at the issue of abortion. Any other questions?
That subject is actually in my book.
Oh, cool. Oh yeah, hike tomorrow. Okay. Once again, if you're not on time, you will be left behind.
What time? At 9?
Hey, that's a book series.
Yeah.
We gotta
We're supposed to be here at 9. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to slots. Half of the hike is in the direct sunlight, so wear big hats. Wear lots of sunscreen. Wear shoes that are closed-toed shoes. So, any other questions?
Is there a second place for prize?
Yeah, hug.
That's that sledgehammer.
There is.
I have another question.
There is no prize for it.
I have another question. Is there a third place?
There's no third place. There's no prize for it. Any other questions? All right. Junior hires, call your parents and go home.
Wait,
High schoolers.